You ever go to a big YouTuber or a YouTuber that's blowing up and basically go back to their old videos and kind of take a look at what they used to make before they were a big channel? It's kind of cool and it really gives you an insight on just how long it takes to get big on YouTube. For example, you may be new to my channel and think, this guy's only got like 400 subs, he must have just started YouTube earlier this year and only posted a few videos. Well, in reality, I'm actually coming up on 3 years now, and almost have 100 videos on the channel, and I uploaded a lot of my videos back in 2017 especially. In fact, I've gotten over half of my total subscribers and channel views since around June of this year, and up until January, I had less than 100 subs, so that really shows just how hard it is to come up on the platform, and I learned that the hard way. But in this video, I wanted to take a look at one YouTuber who's come up in particular, and well, that YouTuber is MrBeast6000. Better known as simply MrBeast today, or Jimmy if you like to go by first name basis. Yeah, I'm talking to you, kid who always called their teacher by their first name. But why MrBeast in particular, you may be wondering? And to that I say, I don't know, I just felt like it. But really because I find his story to be the perfect YouTube success story. I use that title pretty loosely and subjectively because there isn't really an objective, perfect YouTube journey, but I just find MrBeast's story in particular to be pretty inspiring. And sure, there are probably other YouTuber success stories that are also pretty cool, and I may cover some of them in a future video. And yes, I know I'm not the first person to make an analysis video on MrBeast, but hey, why not, am I right? And seeing how I've been a pretty avid fan of MrBeast since he had only like 100,000 subs, I feel like this is a pretty appropriate video for me to make. So without further ado, let's get started. So do you guys remember when I made that video on MrEnter a few months ago? Well, here's a fun fact. 3 years ago, in September of 2016, MrEnter had more subscribers than MrBeast. I know, it's hard to believe, but it's actually true. Now 3 years later, in September of 2019, MrBeast currently has more subscribers than JackSepticEye. Yes, you can check, he has more subs than JackSepticEye. But back in 2016, JackSepticEye already had over 10 million subscribers, which was at the time almost 100 times MrBeast's sub count. That kind of puts MrBeast's insanely fast channel growth into perspective. Today, MrEnter is sitting at about 280,000 subs, so it hasn't even doubled in size from the 210,000 he had at the time. MrBeast, on the other hand, has grown more than 100 times over, growing from around 190,000 to over 24 million. So what sparked this huge growth in such a short period of time? Hold that thought because we're first going to go back to the start of his channel and see how he even got to 100k in the first place. MrBeast created his channel on February 19th, 2012. At the time, he called the channel MrBeast6000 for some reason, but he would end up changing it to just MrBeast a few years later. He uploaded his first video just a single day later, as opposed to a double day later. I'm sorry, that was a really bad joke. But his first video was titled, Worst Minecraft Saw Trap Ever? And to answer your question, yes, it is the worst Minecraft saw trap ever. But when you take a look at the video, you see such a humble beginning to such a massive channel.
Alright. Gee, where am I? What just happened? What did you say? From Saw, before you can advance, you must flip every switch and kill all the monsters that come out. If you try to open the door without killing them, you will explode. Okay?
Like 13-year-old MrBeast at the time would have had no idea just how many subs he would end up getting. Now most of his early videos consisted of Minecraft content, including mod reviews, skin reviews, and build showcases. Now all of these videos were recorded on his old shoddy laptop, so obviously the quality of his videos were lacking, as well as his enthusiasm. But to be fair, those kind of things are generally built up over time, so it's pretty obvious why his first several videos were lacking this. He would soon start to play different games as his channel went on, including Pokemon Showdown and Project Zomboid, and also Battle Pirates. Now originally he wanted this channel to be his second channel for Minecraft, because he already had a channel for Call of Duty content called Beast5TY. But pretty soon this channel would actually become his main Call of Duty channel, and he would end up posting Call of Duty videos here anyways, and would completely ditch Minecraft videos for the most part. This is because his other channel was full of inactive subscribers, because he did so much sub for sub, and so he ended up deleting that channel and focusing on MrBeast6000 as his main channel. By the way, he explains all of this in his 30k subs video, so be sure to check that out if you want more info. Now at first he would do commentaries related to Call of Duty, but as time went on he started to do a lot of commentaries related to other general topics, whilst he used COD gameplay in the background of his videos. One thing that I've noticed about his earlier commentaries is that a lot of them have something to do with YouTube and success, such as how much YouTubers make, or do likes and dislikes matter, and what if this video gets a million views, and will you ever be famous on YouTube? Man, I hope so. But these kinds of videos are a lot of what he'd make at the time. And he'd also make some motivational videos for small YouTubers as well. Now, he made these kinds of videos for quite a while, and you'll notice how every so often he would change his style of thumbnails. Now, at the time, most of his videos would only get a couple hundred views, but considering he only had a couple thousand subs or less at the time, that wasn't so bad. But it wasn't great either. I could kind of see how he was trying to go about growing on YouTube back then, and he was really trying hard to be unique, challenging viewers to a game of rock, paper, scissors at the start of each video.
Hey there, newcomer. I'm challenging you to a game of rock, paper, scissors. If I win, you have to subscribe to my channel. If you win, you will receive a cookie in the mail within the next 2 to 10 weeks.
But it obviously wasn't working, and there really wasn't that big of an audience for that kind of content, and even if there was, he just wasn't reaching it at the time. Especially since, as he puts it,
I quit video games. I haven't played video games in like half a year, and I now upload IRL videos because Call of Duty commentators are like a dime a dozen.
and trust me, I know how it feels to upload lots of videos that I think will do well, only for them to go pretty much nowhere. However, there were some videos that did pretty well, such as his video on how much PewDiePie makes, and especially his video on how many creators get the diamond play button, which I'm pretty sure I actually saw back in the day. The funny thing is that now MrBeast is one of the few creators who will be getting the diamond play button, well, that is unless he already got it, which I'm pretty sure he never would have thought it at the time of him making that video. MrBeast used gameplay for a lot of his videos up until this point, and would rarely do IRL videos. He had shown his face before this. In fact, as far as I can tell, the first video in which he showed his face was the video titled, "Should I Join Faze?" But yeah, apart from a few videos, he would barely show his face for quite a while. But around late 2015, he started to make a lot more IRL facecam type videos, I guess is what I'm calling them, and this was around the time when he had finally reached 10,000 subscribers. And really, this change was definitely one of his better decisions, because he started to get a lot more traffic to his channel around this time, and it made him stand out more. He also decided once and for all to change his name from MrBeast 6000 to just MrBeast around the end of 2015. He had been flip-flopping between the two names for quite a while, but finally decided to change it once and for all. Now in 2016, MrBeast's channel would really start to gain some attention, and a lot of it was coming from one series in particular, one that he was pretty much known for the longest time. That series is of course his Worst Intro series. Some of you may even remember it. And yeah, that was how I actually found MrBeast back in 2016, and that's how I even got into his content. Now the reason that he started this series was because he didn't have his own intro, so he decided to start a series where he just made fun of other people's bad intros. And by the summer of 2016, he was growing so fast in subscribers that he jumped from 50,000 to 100,000 in just 3 weeks.
3 weeks ago, I was at 50,000 subscribers. Now I'm almost at I literally doubled in size in 3 weeks. I don't get it.
This was MrBeast's staple series at the time. Essentially what he would do was look at a bunch of bad intros, whether they be stock Blender dubstep intros with Movie Maker text put over it, or some kid waving a piece of paper with their username in front of the camera in a way that you couldn't even read it. And then he'd review each intro, and by review I really mean make jokes about them. But people really liked this series, and it was pretty much the thing that was sailing his channel at the time. So now we're here. So how did MrBeast go from this point to where he is now? I mean, keep in mind that even though the almost 200,000 subscribers he had at this point was a lot at the time, it actually is less than 1% of his current fan base. So at this point, Jimmy had graduated high school and is supposed to be starting college around this time. But he decided to drop out to pursue YouTube instead, because he says that he'd rather do YouTube and be poor than do any other job. And this really kind of shows just his dedication to YouTube, like, he'd rather pursue what he loves to do, and even if he wasn't going to be rich from it. And you really gotta admire that dedication. Like, that's the kind of dedication you kinda need to get big on YouTube, really. Now, this could be seen as a potentially bad idea, though, but fortunately for Jimmy, this ended up working out really well for him. and it actually ended up becoming a better decision overall, both for his own personal happiness and obviously financially. But again, putting that much faith into YouTube working out is a pretty big risk, and it's always important to have a backup plan, because for most people, it probably doesn't work out so well, sad as it is. But MrBeast was determined to get big on YouTube, and started stepping up his game. So alongside worst intros, he would start doing other interesting things that he thought people would watch and enjoy. He incorporated a lot of running jokes and memes in his videos, such as his giant Asian sticker, his bleach jokes, his paper intro jokes, his $1,000 keyboard, the smashing laptops thing, the sub-botting joke, the whole thing where kids would run down their street screaming MrBeast,
MrBeast! 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 MrBeast!
him not being funny,
Make funny videos.
and the list goes on. He also had some spin-off series to worst intros, like best intros, worst thumbnails, worst banners, and etc. And I think it was around this point that he started to get the video making mindset that he has today. You see, MrBeast operates on the mindset of doing extreme things to get views. So basically things that most people wouldn't do or even be able to do, usually for financial reasons or time reasons. And since he didn't have the financial means at that time that he does now, he had to work with what he had, which he kinda always did, and he says that he's never had a job and made everything he has from YouTube, and I guess his merch and stuff too, but that counts as YouTube, we'll say. And he also reinvests everything he makes into YouTube. But yeah, he would often focus on interesting or extreme things to get views, like buying a $1,000 keyboard and then blowing it up, or reading the entire B-movie script, or doing crazy experiments with microwaves. But in particular, the video that really took off was this video counting to 100,000, which did extremely well, even though I don't even think anyone actually watched it in its entirety. But, I mean, the title probably intrigued people, and they're like, ooh, let's see if he actually did, and they probably just scrolled through, but, whatever works. Oh, and real quick, just as a side note, MrBeast had already done a video counting to 10,000 in the past, but this was a really big step up from that. So I just want to add that in, that he did count to 10,000 before, but obviously this was a big difference. But this kind of shows just how far MrBeast is willing to go to get views. He's willing to spend 40 hours counting to 100,000 for a video, not even knowing if it will do well. And this wouldn't be the last time he'd do something like this. In fact, he'd go on to do a bunch more videos similar to this. And this will get him all the way up to the sweet, sweet milestone of 1 million subscribers. At this point, MrBeast had a very stable, loyal, and active fan base, and one that was growing very quickly. And on top of that, MrBeast had a really good sense on what gets views, and how to come up with good ideas for videos, as well as a good dedication to actually do them. Now eventually MrBeast wanted to move on from the long and boring challenges where he'd just sit in his room doing a repetitive act like watching It's Everyday Bro for 10 hours straight. So seeing how MrBeast had a considerably large audience of well over 2 million subscribers, he had a genius idea. He wanted to get a sponsor to give him a lot of money, but instead of pocketing that money himself, he would use that money to fund said video, which usually involves giving that money to someone else less fortunate than himself. And this brings us to the following video, giving a random homeless man $10,000. In this video, he essentially got his sponsor, Quid, which would also sponsor many more of his videos in the future, to give him $10,000, which he then gave to a homeless guy on the street and recorded his reaction to receiving the money. Now this video was pretty much where it all started. Now there have been other videos like this in the past, but something about it was different. It just felt more genuine. It was coming from this YouTuber who didn't usually make content like this, and was paid for by a sponsor of all things, and I don't really think anyone has done something quite like that before. Normally when people are sponsored, I assume they usually just keep the money, but MrBeast wanted to give all the money to someone else who needed it, which is really generous and charitable. MrBeast really liked the idea of this series, and continued to do videos like this. And to top it all off, this was also bringing in a lot more attention to his channel than he had ever had before. He would give large amounts of money to pizza delivery guys, Twitch streamers, Uber drivers, waitresses, and so many more people. And on top of giving away money, he also started spending his money on other crazy things, like buying cars only using pennies or dollar bills, and doing a bunch of other expensive things. He was pushing his videos to the max, and he actually had the budget to do so, since sponsors were willing to pay him top dollar, and he was getting tens of millions of views on his videos. He also started the series where he gave his milestone subscribers X amount of something. Like for example, he gave his 3 millionth subscriber 3 million pennies, which is $30,000 by the way. And since he was growing so fast, he was flying through these milestones pretty quickly, and he was basically doing them like once every couple months. It was also around this time that he not only stopped making worse intros videos, but he actually deleted all of them from his channel, some of which had a lot of views. Now, I'm not exactly sure why he did this, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's because he didn't want to be associated with that series anymore. Possibly because he thought that series might get him into trouble due to the bullying nature of the videos. That combined with cancel culture as well. People would look back and say, "Oh my gosh, MrBeast used to bully children, let's cancel him." Some people would say that he isn't proud of that content anymore, which doesn't really make sense since he left all of his other old videos up. I mean, I'm assuming he did that because he wants people to see where he came from, but wouldn't he want people to see where he came from with worse intros too? I don't know, maybe he thought those videos were too toxic or too edgy, and didn't want to be associated with that anymore, as it could harm his reputation. Or maybe he'd think that it would send a lot of people to attack those channels and he didn't believe in that anymore. But I just find it funny that the series that initially gave MrBeast his success would end up being the thing that was holding him back from his full potential. I guess that series served its purpose of growing his channel at the time, and once it was no longer needed and more so seen as an obstacle holding him back or bringing him down, he got rid of it. I don't know, it's just something to think about, I guess. Anyways, by November of 2018, MrBeast would pass the greatest milestone of them all, the big one, 10 million subscribers. A feat that almost no YouTuber will ever achieve, sorry to break it to you. And by June of 2019, he would make it to 20 million. MrBeast currently stands as one of the biggest YouTubers on the platform, not including companies or mainstream celebrities. And what really amazes me is that, looking back, he used to just be one of the thousands of small and generic and uninteresting COD commentary channels. And I'm gonna be honest, if I'd seen MrBeast's channel when he only had a couple thousand subs, I would have never thought he would reach even 100,000 subs, yet alone 20 million. And to be honest, he probably wouldn't have if he was still making the same content that he was back then. This really goes to show how changing and improving your content can really make a big difference on YouTube. And I honestly find it incredible that MrBeast was able to beat all these odds and all these hardships and stand out finally after all those years of being just some nobody. It's being one of the biggest somebodies on YouTube and making content that pushes the limits. A lot of people like to say that making it on YouTube is about luck and not about hard work. And while to an extent I kind of agree, but I also kinda have to disagree too. Because I believe it's more about doing smart work, doing the right work, and having the right strategy, and playing your cards just right, and opportunities and stuff like that. MrBeast did work hard with little success at first, but that was because he wasn't making the right kind of content to achieve success. But once he figured out what worked and started doing that, all the success gradually started pouring in. And I can say personally that since I changed my content up since the beginning of this year, I've been seeing more success than I had in the first 2.5 years on YouTube. I was at the point recently where I was getting more in a day than I got in my first 1.5 on YouTube, which is really just a lot. And that's because what I was doing back then wasn't exactly that good, both in terms of SEO and in actual content and quality. And my content was kind of inconsistent and all over the place back then. But as I started to do these YouTuber analysis type videos, my channel has been doing better than ever. Although I still think my content could be changed and improved in the future, and I have done some thinking about perhaps changing things up at some point. Because if something isn't working after a while, you should probably move on if you want to get more views and subscribers. It took MrBeast several years to realize that, but once he did, he was definitely on the right track from there. And what if he'd quit back then? He would have already been a few years in and would have completely given up on everything that would have come. It just goes to show that a lot of good work is wasted for a lack of a little more. Which is a good quote. It's not my quote, but I'll probably leave a picture on screen of the quote. But it is pretty true. And you know, I've wanted to quit, but that's why I kind of keep telling myself that I gotta keep going. Because I don't know what's in store for me down the road. I don't know how many subscribers I could be sitting at in a couple years, and if I give up now, I'm getting rid of all of that, potentially. but to smart thinkers like MrBeast, who learn to change and adapt their content to bring in better results, and consistently do that through all the stages of YouTube, from being a small Let's Play channel with horrible quality and low personality, to an average Call of Duty commentator, to an insightful and hopeful YouTube advice commentator with big dreams, to a reaction comedy channel, to an extreme challenge YouTuber, and to finally be one of the biggest, most generous, and dedicated YouTubers on the site who pushes the limits on his videos, and is still pretty humble about it. That is why I believe that the story of MrBeast is the perfect YouTube success story. He went through all the stages that you'd think of perfectly. He's like the ideal YouTuber from the start to where he is now and where he's going. That's just the dream, and MrBeast is living it. And that's why he's the perfect success story. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to this point, then I just want to say thank you for actually sticking with the video and not clicking off. I'm sorry if I glossed over anything or missed something. I'm not perfect and mistakes can happen. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and if you liked this video, be sure to hit the L button and hit the S button for subscribe, and I'll see you later. Peace.